And there's something that you should know. Realize now on the African continent what's at stake and how much, what these Western powers have in common, and what they're doing in cahoots with each other behind the closed doors. So on the African continent, they are training Africans, these soldiers, so they can invade one of these countries and take it over and give it back to the rightful people.
Where you at?
One of the last things I must say concerning the Congo, not only do they not intend for the Congo to fall into African hands because of its mineral wealth, and it has the greatest deposits of some of the richest elements or minerals of any here on this earth. They do not intend to give it up because of its wealth. Another reason they do not intend to give it up is if you look at the map, you'll see that it is so strategically located geographically. Wherein, if a real genuine African government were to come in power over the Congo, then it would be possible for African troops from all countries to invade Angola, which is a Portuguese possession. And if Angola fell, and it would fall, then it would only be a matter of time before Southwest Africa, Southern Rhodesia, and Buetanoland also will fall, and it would put African troops right on the border of South Africa. And that's where they really want to get, that man down there in South Africa. And the United States' interests are involved in blocking this. Yes, some of these liberals who grin in your face like they're your best friends, they have money tied up in the Congo. Some of the most powerful political figures in this country come up, and governors over states have got interested in the Congo and got interested in South Africa and got interest all over the African continent and go there. And as the Africans awaken to realize that it makes them full of the incentive to rest until that exploiter is driven out. So now what effect does this have on us? Why should the black man in America concern himself since he's not been from the African continent for 300 or 400 years? Why should we concern ourselves? What impact does it have? What happens to them have upon us? Number one, first we have to realize that up until 1959, Africa was dominated by the colonial powers, and by the colonial powers of Europe having complete control over Africa, they projected the image of Africa negatively. They projected Africa always in a negative light. Jungles, savages, cannibals, nothing civilized. Why then naturally it was so negative that it was negative to you and me, and you and I begin to hate it. We didn't want anybody telling us anything about Africa, much less call us Africans. In hating Africa and in hating the Africans, we end up hating ourselves without even realizing it, because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. You show me one of these people over here who have been thoroughly brainwashed, who has a negative attitude towards Africa, and I'll show you one that has a negative attitude towards himself. You can't have a positive attitude towards yourself and a negative attitude towards Africa at the same time. To the same degree that your understanding of an attitude towards Africa becomes positive, you'll find that your understanding of your attitude towards yourself will also become positive. And this is what the white man knows. So they very skillfully made you and me hate our African identity, our African characteristics.
Well,
you know yourself.
Okay, yeah, I could do that. Okay.
And we have been a people who hated our African characteristics. We hated our hair. We hated the shape of our nose. We wanted one of those long dog-like noses, you know? Yeah, we hated the color of our skin. Hated the blood of Africa that was in our veins. And in hating our features and our skin and our blood, why? We had to end up hating ourselves. And we hated ourselves. Our color was to become us a chain. We felt that it was holding us back. Our color became to us like a prison, which we felt keeping us confined, not letting us go this way or that way. We felt that all these restrictions were based solely upon our color. And the psychological reaction to that would have to be that as long as we felt imprisoned or chained or trapped by the black skin, black features, and by black blood, that skin and those features and that blood was holding us back automatically, and it became hateful to us. And it became hateful to us. It made us feel inferior. It made us feel inadequate. It made us feel helpless. And when we fell victims to this feeling of inadequacy or feelings of inferiority or helplessness, we turned to somebody else and to show us the way. We didn't have confidence in another black man to show us the way, or black people to show us the way. In those days, we didn't. We didn't think a black man could do anything but play some horn, you know, some sounds that make you happy with some songs in that way. But as far as things where our food, clothing, and shelter was concerned, and our education was concerned, we thought to the man. We never thought for ourselves because we felt helpless. What made us feel helpless was our hatred for ourselves. And our hatred for ourselves stemmed from our hatred of other Africans. Along about 1955, they had the Bandar Conference in Indonesia. And at that time, the Africans, the Asians, the Arabs, all of the non-white people got together and agreed to de-emphasize their differences and emphasize what they had in common and form a working unity. And it was the working unity, the spirit of Bandar created a working unity that made it possible for the Asians who were oppressed, the Africans who were oppressed, and others who were oppressed to work together towards gaining independence for these other people. And it was the spirit of Bandar that brought into existence this working unity that made it possible for other nations that didn't have a chance to become independent to come into their independence. And most of this began along in 1959. After 1959, the spirit of African nationalism was fanned to a high flame, and we then began to witness the complete collapse of colonialism. France began to get out of French West Africa. Belgium began to make moves to get out of Congo. Britain began to make moves along to get out of Kenya, Tanganyika, Uganda, Nigeria, and some of these other places. Although it looked like they were getting out, they pulled a trick that was out of colossal. In that you're playing basketball and you get trapped, you don't throw the ball away, you throw it to one of your teammates who's in the clear. And this is what the European powers did. They were trapped on the African continent, they couldn't stay there, they were looked upon as colonial, imperialist, so they had to pass the ball to someone whose image was different. And they passed the ball to Uncle Sam. And he picked it up and was been running for a touchdown ever since. He was in the clear, he was not looked upon as the one who had colonialized the African continent, but at that time the Africans couldn't see that through the United States had colonialized the African continent. He had colonialized 22 million blacks here on this continent because we're just as thoroughly colonialized as everybody else. When the ball was passed to the United States, it was passed by the time when John Kennedy came into power. He picked it up and helped run to it. He was one of the shrewdest backfield runners that history has ever recorded. He surrounded himself with intellectuals, highly educated, learned, and well-informed people. And the analysis told him that the government of America was confronted from a new problem. And this new problem stemmed from the fact that Africans were now awakened, they were enlightened, and they were fearless, they would fight. So this meant that the Western powers couldn't stay there by force. And since their own economies, the European economy and the American economy was based upon their continued influence over the African continent, they had to find some new means of staying there. So they used the friendly approach. They switched from the old open colonial imperialist approach to the benevolent approach. They came up with some benevolent colonialism, philanthropic colonialism, humanitarianism or dollarism. Immediately everything was Peace Corps, crosswords. We've got to help our African brothers. Pick up on that. Can't help us in Mississippi, can't help us in Alabama or Detroit or here in Dearborn with some real Ku Klux Klan live. They're going to send you all the way to Africa to help. I know Dearborn, you know I'm from Detroit. I used to live here in Inkster and you had to go through Dearborn to get to Inkster. Just like driving through Mississippi when you go to Dearborn. Is it still that way? Well, you should straighten it out. So realizing that it was necessary to come up with these new approaches, Kennedy did it. He created an image out of himself that was skillfully designed to make the people on the African continent think that he was Jesus, the great white father, come to make things right. I'm telling you, some of these Negroes cried harder when he died than when they cried for Jesus when he was crucified. From 1955 to 1964 was the era which he was witnessed immersion of Africa. The impact that this had upon the civil rights struggle in America has never been fully told. For one reason, for one thing, one of the primary ingredients in the complete civil rights struggle was the Black Muslim movement. The Black Muslim movement thought it took no part in things political, civic. It didn't take too much part in anything other than stopping people from doing this drinking, smoking, and so on.
Yeah, she's a
Moral reform had, but beyond that, it did nothing. But it talked such a strong talk until it put up the Negro organizations on the spot.
Yes.
But before the Black Muslim movement came along, the NAACP was looked upon as radical. They were getting ready to investigate it, and then along came the Muslim movement and frightened the white man so much he began to say, "Thank God for old Uncle Royal, Uncle Whitney, and Uncle A. Philip, and Uncle." You've got a whole lot of uncles in there. I can't remember their names. You're all older than I, so I call them uncle. Plus, if you use the word Uncle Tom nowadays, I heard they'll sue you for libel, you know. So I don't call on any of them Uncle Tom anymore. I call them Uncle Ray. One of the things that made the Black Muslim movement grow was its emphasis upon things African. The secret to the growth of the Black Muslim movement: African blood, African origin, African culture, African ties. And you'd be surprised, we discovered that deep within the subconscious of the black man in this country, he's still more African than he is American. He thinks that he's no more American than African because the man is jiving him. The man is brainwashing him every day. He's telling him, "You're the American. You're an American. Man, how could you think you're American and you haven't ever had any kind of American treatment over here? You have never